Hey guys, it's me, Gabriel, your young healer and leader of the Wolfpack, coming to you with that evening spark. Oh yes, we're outside a little bit. Get that outside action. And so, this one, we talked about this in the morning boost, but there are no errors in God's plan. You know, I think at first glance, it may seem to be confusing. And I'm there with you in that sometimes it doesn't make sense. I had to ponder this one deep. I had to let the Holy Spirit speak to me in a grand way, in a simple way. See, I think the objections that often may come is, well, what about sin, sickness, and death? You know, these things that seem pretty terrible, that seem to make the world seem pretty crazy and not in control. Where God's not in control, it seems like God's having to it creates a very odd picture where you think, well, okay, if the way that things are going, why would God allow us to keep being born into this world to where we don't even have a guaranteed chance potentially of getting in if we're not quote-unquote Christians, or then he'll apparently sell people to hell, and then people might say, well, God loved us so much, he wanted us to give us the opportunity. Well, why is it? What was happening before? Shouldn't we want to, wouldn't we want to stay? And then the Mormons say, we wanted to become like God and this, that, and the other. That's for another tale, for another time. The point is that it seems like we're put in this odd situation. And it seems like it's like a Hunger Games of life. It's very confusing. But here's the thing. In God's plan, if there is no errors in God's plan, and, then there's also the dynamic of free will. Because if there's free will, by that denotion, then everything isn't okay. Everything, there's a chance then that you could have, for instance, if I have a plan that I want you to go a certain way, but then by your free will, oh, now you don't, well, then how does that plan still coincide? If I were wanting you to go to point B, but you decide to go to point J, well, that seems to contradict it then. The very nature of free will would then say, well, we have a way of somehow contradicting and opposing the perfect will of God. And then it almost then makes God seem like he's a little child with a tantrum where he's just saying, fine, you don't want to follow my will, I'm just going to kill you. Like this wrathful God. So, wow, God dang it. Ants stinging me. These ants don't play no games. We're going to move. We are mobile. And so, yeah, it creates a very weird situation. You can't see me. I'm just illuminating with light. But yeah, and so these are the things that I think, at least for me, and probably a lot of you, are jamming in your mind, and you're like, you just can't figure this stuff out. Now we're gonna drop some stuff on you, so you better be buckled up. So, one thing to recognize is that this world has been over a long time. Because in the thought of eternity, where you have never left your perfection with God, where we may, in our awareness, not see things as in a perfected sense, in the sense that you see all the sin, sickness, and death, things decaying, there's chaos, and yet this world is founded on fear, So, which is a direct opposition to God and his love. But we weren't given the spirit of fear, we were given the spirit of love, as Paul says. So, there's kind of these things you have to look at in regards to it all. So, if God's plan is without errors, and this world's been over a long time, we're kind of, what happens is when you allow that love to permeate into your life, it shifts things and how they may have been going, and allows them to be the things for which they need to be. I'll give you a situation. I'll give you an example to clarify. So, think about a relationship you may have had, and at first it was really lovely, but then you may have noticed that the fear started creeping in, or the hate, or the jealousy, or the anger, all this stuff. Well, and then the relationship dies. And then come down later down the line, you realize, oh, we'll have forgiveness. We'll be forgiving. And things like that. And you're like, okay, that seems all well and all. Because what it does is it aligns you with God's will. It gets you kind of on the same page as Him, as it were. But then there's times where when you do that, and the relationship, nothing comes of it. You know? One thing I've come to realize with that, because that's real talk right there, folks. It's kind of one of those like, well, I thought forgiveness made everything right. You know? Well, one thing to think about is that maybe the reason why that relationship isn't back together, and this not to say like romantically, but like they block you on Facebook. I've had that happen to me multiple times. I'm just being real. Is that maybe that relationship, it's allowing it to go back in the manner of what it was supposed to be. And maybe, you know, you guys weren't meant to be together for a time. In that, like for instance, you know, trying to get my train of thought here. You know, when it's what it is it's you. When we put our kind of force our will, like I'm gonna do this because I have to, because of desire, which leads to suffering. You know, often it does lead to all these things when we try to do it ourselves and not allow the Holy Spirit to guide us in our decision making. It always ends up bad, y'all. It always ends up bad. But it doesn't have to be that way. Oh, here we go. Go to a little shack, a little shed over here. And that's the thing I noticed is that maybe when that happens, it's like you can still have healing. But maybe it was like God's way of showing like, hey, that relationship, you did some good as I've seen it, but then it's like you also have to maybe, and what's also may be the case is it may be needing to revert back to its more infant state, in the sense that it had gone too far and you need some time to heal before you can get back with the person as far as relationship and friendship goes, so that way you don't go back in the same way. And so that's kind of an example that we go through, because relationships are the temple of the Holy Spirit, so it's an important dynamic to understand in that regard. And so yeah, I mean, I think with all that, I would say that, you know, this is something that's also pretty mind-boggling, is that your true self, with a capital S, has been going on its way without delay. You know, all the while we may seem to think that we're in this darkened world and it's all chaotic. All that chaos stems from the sense of separation, from the sense of fear, from hatred, all these things, all of which aren't true. Because when we are loving, when we are forgiving, when we are peace offering, don't you notice how things just have a way of aligning themselves in a right way? For me, when I act that way towards my brother, when I decide to say, instead of lashing out at him, instead of hating on him, I decide to be forgiving, to be loving, and to really allow that to resonate and exemplify that in my life and how I think about my brother too. It's not just about what you say, but allowing those true spiritual values of ourselves to reflect the manner in which we act and treat our brother. You know, because Jesus says, you know, to his apostles, to his disciples, is that, you know, what you do to one, you do to me. And he's not just talking about to the believers. What you do to one believer, you do to me. You know, what you do. You know, when I was poor, you came and helped me. When I was in the prisons, and when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was cold, you gave me warmth. And anybody, you know, because there's probably plenty of people who, you know, are in prison. There are plenty of people who are in prison. And some may say, well, they've shut themselves out from Christ. They don't have that relationship with Christ. Yeah, but by the measure for which you believe yourself to have that relationship with Christ, that you've opened your heart to Him, then why then are you going to hate it? That person who may have shut Christ out. Because it's kind of like the circle of atonement, in that by the measure for which you exclude, you yourself are outside of it. And by the measure for which you include, then you too, along with them, are in that. And I think that relates to the heirs, no heirs being in God's plan, because by that love that we give, we're able to help realign ourselves with what's been going on this whole time. You know? There's certain things that need to be undone, and sometimes it looks like it's not even coming from heaven. It's this chaotic thing. You know, it's the floodgates that are being opened. But sometimes that's what, you know, to the human sense, that's what it may seem to be. But you can have that trust that all things will be set right. There's that faith. And that's why I think it's important to not judge the outcome. Because when we judge the outcome, we think, oh, there's so much stuff wrong. It's based off of our perception. And by your perception, do you know how everything, how the past, present, and future of yourself and each other and the others involved with whatever it may be is going to turn out? I sure don't. I don't have that kind of certainty. I mean, I would have to be omniscient. I ain't God. I ain't about to mistake my identity with His necessarily. You know, so in the sense that, you know, we're a part of God, but does that mean we are God? So as a drop of water is one with the ocean, so are we one with God. Now, with the whole dynamic of free will, I would say it's not a matter of our free will is able to just disrupt everything of God's plan, but it's more about, it's kind of like, it's like, I mean, that supposed free will that can disrupt the plan of God is as a mouse declaring war on the universe, or a pebble disrupting the waves of the ocean. It's not, I mean, even that is more conceivable than what we would have an effect on in affecting the reality of God's plan. Not in a discouraging manner, but in an almost a reassuring manner that you don't have to feel like what you do is somehow destroying everything. Everything still is at peace and it is intact and where it's supposed to be. You know, because God didn't create that sinful thought. He didn't create that disease and death. And so it has no effect on you either. And when you proclaim that and recognize that recognition of the truth within you, you're able to see that plan of God that's in each and every one of us. That apple, the apple of His eye, the eye of His apple. You're really special to Him. That, I think you're the apple of His eye. And that you are His son, for which He is well pleased. Because think about it, what you do to the son, what you do to each other, you do to the son. So when you condemn a brother, when you condemn a neighbor, when you condemn anybody, you are condemning the son. You're condemning the Christ within him. That where he may have shut it out, don't shut it out within yourself. You're shutting when you condemn, what you're doing is you're shutting the Christ from you. You're not welcoming Him. He can only be welcomed where he can only come in where He's welcome. And He's welcomed through love, not through hate. And so that's why we don't see, that's when the supposed God's plan supposedly becomes disrupted and destroyed and brought into chaos and disorder. But in reality, it's all good, baby. It's all gravy. I've been going for a minute. Oh, you got yourself a hurricane. You got yourself an inferno, an evening inferno, baby. Shutting it down. Walking around, talking about God and Jesus and all that good stuff. Oh yeah, you better believe I hope you share this. Give us some love. Check us out on Facebook on the Benevolent Wolfpack, where I do my morning boosts, little sizzlers to get you just spiritually jazzed for the day. You give a little post as well about other stuff that may not be necessarily need to be a video, but we make it happen all the same for your guys' benefit. So we're going to take off because we're about out of time, but I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I hope that this video helps you see that God's plan is intact and that nothing can disrupt that, regardless of whatever chaotic picture may seem to be in the frame. God's eternal, perfect equation is forever remaining, and you're a part of that, and He's got your future intact. So trust the man, because He's going to get you to the finish line. All right, I'll see you guys. Peace.